Sabres Live is presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Nothing else comes close.
We are going to overtime.
Not a lot of overtimes in recent Sabres games, but Sabres are making headway in the standings despite a couple of challenging games against Philadelphia over the last 7 days. Welcome into the show. I think, Marty, we're feeling prompted by constant fluctuation to the lineup as, you know, how we assess what we've just seen and try to figure out what we're about to see. It's presenting some interesting looks for the coaching staff.
Well, it presented interesting looks on Saturday night, right? Going 11 forwards and 7D. So now some of the forwards said it's hard to get into a rhythm, but others, I have known that when there's 11 forwards, they feel like they're on the ice, you know, a lot more. And look, Tage found himself having a great game. You know, Alex Tuch with a couple of goals. By the way, red light just for Alex Tuch over here. You know, I can't press the button because it won't go on, but
buy some batteries.
Well, maybe it's that, or maybe it's just an old, like, promotional red light that never really worked. But no, so yeah, it presents different options in lines, different options in deep pairing. You know, different option in net now because Luukkonen played Wednesday, Friday, Levi on Saturday. So I personally like that. Look, you're always going to have your standard, right? We talked last week. At some point, they're going to go back to Skinner, Thompson, Tuch. Well, they did Saturday night, but it wasn't always Skinner, Thompson, Tuch because you had to switch the lines because you had 11 forward. So the flexibility, I think, is important. Now, I mean, teams would probably prefer to have their four lines in 6D and always know what they have. But right now, you can try different things.
I think it's fair to say that Skinner, Thompson, and Tuch are back together, though.
I would assume so. I
mean, they are based on the game
scored.
And practice and no Cousins moving forward in the short term. So,
yeah, but again, like, okay, so how do you move forward? Because 11-7 was so good against, you know, Toronto that at practice on Monday, they didn't go 11-7 technically because there's no reasons for that, right? In warm-up Saturday, they didn't go 11-7 because there's no reasons for that. But against Carolina on Tuesday, they could go 11-7. We don't know that. And it would mean that, yes, you could have your Thompson line with Skinner and Tuch, but you could also maybe all of a sudden put Jordan Greenway in there. All of a sudden put somebody else, JJ Peterka in there. You can move things around.
I think you're hedging or couching or fence sitting or something because it doesn't line up with what
I'm couching.
You're couching for sure. No, but like in practice, it's Skinner, Thompson, Tuch. So we know this is going to be the case because he explained why Ryan Johnson was the 7th D and why they didn't use him extensively until the third period on Saturday, where he got even better. And he played predominantly with Dahlin, which is where he practiced on Monday. So I don't think he's lying. And I'm not saying you think he's lying. I'm saying I think it's more obvious to me than it is to you in this moment that it's going to be 12-6 against Carolina. And then what have we learned about this? Well, we've learned that the top line looked like the top line last year. Middlestat can be productive seemingly with whomever right now, but he also has good chemistry with Peterka specifically and Greenway. And the bottom two lines are not producing a ton of offense right now. So Jost, by the numbers, I believe has been more effective between Girgensons and Opozo than Krebs has been so far. And that leaves Krebs on a different line right now with Rusek and presumably Olofsson, because Savoie is up, but he's not active yet, and Don Granato doesn't really feel an urgency to get him in right now without more practice time. So, like, if I'm looking at a question mark, not a question mark, but an unknown moving forward here, it's can Krebs and Olofsson and let's say Rusek find something here in the absence of Brandon Biro, who's now on IR, and again, still no Cousins.
Well, I guess I'm hedging because I have enough experience in trying to guess the lineup coming up that I've been fooled once or twice. So I'm going to hedge on that. The other part that I'm hedging is because coaches, and I don't know that Don Granato falls technically into that, but they don't like to change a winning lineup. And if you went 11-7, then you're like, you know what? Maybe we don't want to do it. But at the same time, it was a necessity, to go. Well, was it a necessity? You still had Rusek available. You chose not to dress him in the game.
Right.
But they talked about giving younger players a look. Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned Matt Savoie, and you mentioned Savoie and Granato. Granato saying about Savoie that he'll need a few practices. So most likely not going to see him Tuesday night. I would suggest, and I'm going to really put all my chips in the middle of the table and say, Savoie is not going to play Tuesday night. Don Granato said he'll need practices, but who knows, right? But then you move ahead later that week and you're like, okay, are we still giving Rusek a longer look? Are we giving Savoie a look? Are we giving Ryan Johnson a look? Because it seems to me like it has brought a different energy. Biron came in, brought in an energy. Like that, to me, has changed a little bit as how the Sabres have done things the last week as opposed to last season. What we know works best. Well, this year, what we don't know may work best. And that's why we've seen Olofsson, a healthy scratch. We've seen, even when Bryson came in, brought in some different energy. So I'm always going to be a little bit more like penciled and pen when doing my notes ahead of time.
Right. But I think you just artfully dodged my question again. And that is, what would you expect, or how does Krebs feel like he can contribute more? How does Olofsson feel like he can contribute more? And can Rusek help them contribute more? Because right now you're looking like that's the spot in the lineup where you're looking at, okay, well, there's not a lot here. Now, I said Jost has maybe been, by the numbers, more effective in between Girgensons and Opozo. But no matter how you look at the fourth line, it's not chipping in as much either. So, it's a good thing Tuch has found his rhythm. Thompson's found his rhythm. Middlestat has a rhythm. Peterka has a rhythm right now because they haven't quite struck that balance all the way through that made them a top three, offensive team last year. They're trending the right way.
I totally forgot about your question because I went into rambling like I do sometimes. My brain goes 100 miles an hour. But you're right. So how does Krebs find his offensive touch, and how does Olofsson find his offensive touch? For me, I'd like to say that, and this is going to sound a little, if they had the offense that we have to expect from them, we would have seen it now. I mean, we are, more than 10 games in. We are, almost in the middle of November now. And I not want to say that what you're seeing is what you get, but often we're hopeful that things are going to change. That's why I personally think that's why Biron was called up. That's why Rusek was called up. That's why Savoie is going to get a look. That's why Benson got as much as a look on top lines as he has, because I'm not speaking for the team here. Myself, I'm looking at it and I say, I think we are seeing what this year may look like for Krebs, what this year may look like for Olofsson, what this year may look like for the fourth line, which it's fine if it's only your fourth line that's going out there and being responsible and playing a hard game. And Zemgus has provided a little bit of offense,
right? But
you can't have two bottom lines.
Right. The expected goals is not great right now for the bottom group. And more so the chances that they're allowing. It's one thing to just be neutral, right? And I get it. Like, you're going to get in some tough matchups, obviously. But I just think that this, to your point, it's a real work in progress here. And I don't think
it's a real work in progress, and it's scratching for answers because we have, we dig into the numbers. We look at the expected goals, the shots for, the shot against, the chances for, chances against, all the 5-on-5. We look at how the power play is trying to generate. But I look at even the power play, against Toronto. Owen Power gives it to Victor Olofsson. He has the big one-timer. You're thinking, if Victor's going to provide you offense, look, I know that his 5-on-5 production last year was better than what we've seen, but he was always more of that power play. Get your production on the power play, and then your 5-on-5 will follow. Mm-hmm. Well, he had the one-timer. It missed the net on the right side by 5 feet, and then Power could have fed it to Olofsson again. He chose not to, gave it to Peterka, who walked in and scored. So I'm saying, from what I'm looking at, it's just not just, the outside looking and say, well, Victor, we all have known now for a little bit that it's not, the piece of the puzzle doesn't seem to work as well as you would want it to be. And Peyton Krebs, although will be a really good NHL player, in my opinion, the offense is, in my opinion, not going to be what we're going to talk about in Peyton Krebs. James Patrick said the NHL puts you in your place. Yeah. I think the NHL is putting Peyton Krebs in his place, and he has to develop a different side of his game. Can he be a bottom two line center that will go against, at times, the other team's top line and shut them down? That's more where I think it's got a trend to, as opposed to the offense.
Do you think there's any benefit in considering Krebs spending a little bit of time in Rochester?
Not right now. Not right now. I think that personally, I would put him on a line that he knows he's on that line. And when he was with Zemgus Girgensons and Calaposo, they were aligned. Now, Need made him move up and down the lineup. He played wing, and he was with Jost. I think it's moved around. Give him a line and say, listen, this is your role. I'm going to give you a checklist of things to do. You're going to be defensively responsible. You're going to shut down the line against who you're playing. You're going to provide offense when it presents itself. You're not going to force offense. You're going to provide it when it's there. I think there's a checklist of things that you have to give Peyton Krebs, but give him some constant variables, which is your wingers, to work into that. And I think with Krebs right now, it's hard because he's the one piece that moves around most than anybody else.
I know what you're saying. It's just based on everything we've just seen in the last week with the call-ups and the injuries, it's hard to imagine that he's going to find a consistent spot at the moment, unless, again, this new look potentially with Rusek and Olofsson, like maybe it kicks it into high gear. I don't know. And I don't even know what high gear is. I just think that based on the expectations outwardly and the expectations that they promoted from within that they have on themselves, I don't think it's unfair to say that all these players we're talking about feel like they can do more. No,
and look, Thompson has gotten himself going, right? And that's great. And he looks good on the PK. He looks good on 5-on-5. The power play is still not where you want it to be, although he took more shots and they created more at the net. But it's the other unit that scored a power play goal Saturday night. Skinner is rolling. Skinner is exactly what anybody would have wanted him to be, even when he wasn't on the top line and he was with Middlestat. He was going. Casey's going. Tuch is interesting to me because Tuch is playing better. Tuch now has 3 goals, scored 2 against the Leafs. Tuch still has not beaten a goalie on a shot. He's had a deflection with his stick and a deflection off his arm and an empty net goal. Like, what is a trait of Alex Tuch's game? Power forward, down the wing, shot, rebound, get to the net, bang in a rebound. Like, he has still not shot a puck into the net to beat a goaltender. So I think that's come in, and the confidence that he hopefully got from Saturday night. But, so Krebs, Olofsson, Rusek, the fourth line, whatever, I think you can put Alex Tuch in that list of players that have still not found their groove offensively the way that we were hoping they would.
With Ryan Johnson, let's focus on the defense here. We saw 7 defensemen on Saturday. Johnson didn't play a ton of minutes, ended up less than 9 on the night, but half of his shifts came in the third period. He saw most of his 5-on-5 time with Rasmus Dahlin, and that's who he lines up with in practice. Now, we know Samuelsson is on injured reserve, and that means, he's out a minimum 7 days. What is possible here between Johnson and Dahlin in the short term?
Well, I like that. I like that a lot. As Jim Carrey would have said in Dumb and Dumber, I like it a lot. Because when Ryan Johnson got called up, I thought in myself, Mattias Samuelsson is out. Do I want to disrupt Power and Jokiharju? Do I want to disrupt, Clifton and Johnson? Possibly no. Could I see Ryan Johnson with Rasmus Dahlin? And then I start to fantasize of that, how that could look. Dahlin skate ability and, playmaking ability and all of that. And Ryan Johnson's skate ability and, being able to read one another. And so I think, to me, that is kind of a ace up your sleeve, right? Like knowing that Matthias Samuelsson went down. And last year when Samuelsson went down, the Sabres obviously did not have results. They did not have a good record at all. They couldn't fill that hole. Well, Ryan Johnson can definitely be that ace up your sleeve that, okay, you know what? You just lost a big piece in defense. Boom, let's drop that down. Let's go. Let's see what you got. And I like that in the third period, Don Granato gave Ryan Johnson more ice time. Took him a couple of periods to get adjusted. I actually thought he looked so good. That pass to Jeff Skinner was like NHL standout, right? You avoid a check from Ryan Reeves, number one. You take 2 strides forward, and then you sling it to the far blue line to Skinner for the partial down the wing break and slap shot. Like that to me is the type of plays that I know I've seen him do at the rookie camp, in training camp, and all. Now, will he do it every game in the NHL? It's a lot to ask, but I like the idea of Dahlin and Ryan Johnson together. I really think that in the absence of Matthias Samuelsson, that could be the difference from last year, not having Sammy in the lineup, to this year, having somebody that can fill that gap.
Well, I think, yes, for sure. But also that's why they believe they went and added Erik Johnson and Connor Clifton for fear of, if you lose any of your top guys, that they're going to have more depth and more balance. Now, I say this like somewhat surprised as far as how practice went Monday, because Clifton was back with Erik Johnson when on Saturday it was 7 defensemen. Clifton's bulk of even strength time was with Owen Power, and Clifton had arguably his best game as a Sabre. His Corsi was up around 70%, and Owen Power on the other side of that pairing also had a really strong game, very quickly making people forget about a -5 that was likely inappropriately attached to him on Friday, but he still had to wear it. You know what I mean? Like that, it's pretty great when you have his ability to just move on. And I think that's a very overrated trait that Power has here. Underrated
he's like a
trait.
Goldfish. He's like a goldfish. Like he doesn't remember 5 minutes ago. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's not so good. You got to be able to build momentum sometimes. But okay, so quickly on the addition of Connor Clifton and Erik Johnson, which, by the way, everybody is continuing to rave about EJ on the blue line and the penalty kill, and to the point where, who was it? Was it Tate that said?
Tuch.
Oh, Alex Tuch. He says, oh, man, like, look at EJ on the penalty kill. Like, he's made such a difference. Oh, and also Marty, our assistant coach, who's done some work. But it was almost like Erik Johnson is the one guy, right? And maybe he is. Maybe he's very vocal. Maybe he helps a lot on the bench. Maybe he's on the ice. That's great. Now, the difference with those two, again, when you lose Samuelsson, is you don't want to take Connor Clifton or Erik Johnson right now and move him up with Dahlin. I think what you're trusting is that you can kind of spread the minutes a little bit more evenly over your 3 pairing, but it's not one of those guys that's going to jump in and fill in like the Samuelsson role, where Ryan Johnson, I believe, could, because of the upside that he has, because of the hockey sense that he has, and being able to play with a guy like Rasmus Dahlin. It's not easy to play with Dolls, and because he does so many things off the cuff. So I think that's important. But Connor Clifton had a fantastic game. Absolutely. Could that be a positive for him to take with him and now have that same type of game with Erik Johnson, that you can be like, okay, we gave you some time with Owen Power, but now take it with EJ, because EJ's going good. And we're going to have, look at Yoki Aru playing with Power. He's played great this year.
Right, but Yoki played most with Dahlin at even strength on Saturday. That's the funny part to me. That's why I looked at these pairings and was somewhat surprised. And then if you really want to confuse the issue or muddy the waters or statistical overload, the Sabres are 3-0 when Jacob Bryson's in the lineup.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Bryson's not bad either. He's
not playing much, but I'm just saying, it is what it is. So,
but I've been on teams, Duffer, where we've had a 7th defenseman who has come in spottedly, like, oh, you play a couple of games there, you don't, you play as a 7D or you play as a 6D and you play only 7 minutes. But that role is important. And I think, look, Bryson may not like it, but the way that it's lined up right now is, look, you're our 7D. and we're going to use you and we're going to need you. But if there's another spot, like a Matthias Samuelsson spot that becomes vacated, we have guys in Rochester that we want to call up and use in that situation.
Well, when you're serious about the game, bet on Buffalo with the only sports books in Western New York. Seneca Resorts and Casinos betting counters open daily. Self-service betting kiosks available 24/7 at all 3 locations at Seneca, Niagara, Allegheny, or Buffalo Creek. And the Sports Lounge features the latest lines, multiple screens, so you never miss a play. The sports book at Seneca Resorts and Casinos, where the love of the game meets the thrill of the win. How do they find the thrill of the win in Carolina, where we know historically it has not been easy the last half dozen years? And don't misjudge the Hurricanes and their 7-5 record, even goal differential, and really, really, really bad save percentage. The Hurricanes are unbeaten at home at 3-0, and they are one of the top comeback teams in the NHL. So do not let the big picture fool you on the Canes and what they are.
Now, 2 things. One, Sports Lounge has a ton of red lights, so it works because they turn them on when the Sabres play and they score. That's one. 2, you gotta keep scoring goals. Yeah. Reports this on Monday morning that Freddie Anderson is dealing with a medical issue, that Yaroslav Halak has been brought in on a tryout. That's because Antti Ranta has been kind of hot and cold, and there has been his moment. Pyotr Kochetkov was down in Syracuse. So there's goaltending, I don't want to call it drama in Carolina, but what was their strength has not been their strength this year. Their defensive game has not been their strength this year. So scoring for me is always, in those type of situations, going to be what will set you apart, what the Sabres can do, and how that's going to set them in the right direction for this game. There's plenty of time. I'll tell you, got to win that game 2-1. Got to win that game 1-0. You got to play solid defensively. I'm going to go way out to the other side against Carolina. And it's, you got to create, you got to take chances, you got to score. Because Carolina, they still have some good offense, but they've not been able to keep, they have great offense, but they've not been able to keep it out of their net. So you gotta want to go out there and win it 6-4, 5-3. That's the way you win the game.
Islanders never got the 4th goal on Saturday. They led Carolina 3-0 and then lost at 4-3. So that's the type of team they're up against. Obviously, they have the Sabres do. They have Minnesota for Hockey Fights Cancer Night on Friday and at Pittsburgh on Saturday. What's the bigger concern now? Or let me put it this way. Many people are saying,
I love that. We should have a t-shirt. Many people
that they are still concerned with Buffalo's inconsistency on home ice. Now, this may seem like a weird time to ask it, but when you have so few home games this month, you need to find a way to feel good on home ice. And this is the challenge with this group right now, right? They're 3-4 on home ice after it was a big talking point last year. And I still don't know how to identify the issue.
I don't know how to identify the issue. Simply because, look, you can try no morning skate. You can try, no skate the day before and just the morning skate. You can try many different things. And I know Don Granato has tried many different things. You can try to duplicate your schedule from the road. You can say, hey, this is how we're going to get it done. For me, this is going to sound so weird. For me, the reason why the Sabres have been good in black and red is because there is a different energy in the building and the players feel it.
Right, but that didn't happen on Friday, and it's kind of not uniform.
It didn't happen twice against the Flyers, right? So in 2 years.
No, but I mean, they're 3-4 at home this year, and it has nothing to do with black and red.
No. But I'm just saying, without saying it in a different way, I think that it's been flat at the arena, and the players are a reason for that. Start the game hot, go boom, boom, boom. But I don't feel like the arena's been buzzing. It's been flat, and it's a weird thing to try to explain. But I can tell you that I had terrible games in New Jersey, I had terrible games in Atlanta, 2 of my worst teams to play against, because when you went in those buildings, it was awful. It was dead. It was never fun to play there. Now, I think it impacts more the home team than it impacts the away team. The away team's usually whatever. But I like the buzz in building. I like a Montreal. I like a Ottawa. I like an MSG. I like the Philadelphia. I like those buildings because they were buzzing. As the away team, I like getting yelled at. Biron, you suck. Like, I liked it. And I jumped up to the front of the line for that. And I feel like because the team has had lack of success at home and because they've not started games the right way at home, the building's been flat and they've gone flat with the building. So you've got to create your energy. So the building gets energized, but it's on the players, obviously. So I don't know. It's the only thing I can come up with.
I had a long list of things to get to. Guess what? We didn't hit them all. That means we'll have a full plate on Sabres Live throughout the week, Tuesday through Friday on WGR Sports Radio 550 and MSG. Marty, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you soon.